Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be around the world. Welcome to another office hours here on the Agency Success from hosting.com. So glad you are with us today. We have a lot of questions in the list, many things to talk about today, and we're just going to dive right into your questions because there are 11 questions in the list, even getting started. So we were talking to folks in the pre-show about what they were working on. A lot of interesting projects happening, some migrations, all sorts of neat things. And lots of questions stacked up here as well. One thing I do want to mention as we're getting started, we did get the next couple of live streams scheduled for December. And some of you are going to be happy about this. You've been asking about a starter site live stream. And so we are going to be doing that in December. Those of you who have been around for a few years in different spots where I've been presenting, you will remember that we've done a starter site live stream course toward the end of the year every time. So just a note, this will be abbreviated from how we've done it in the past. But on December the 2nd, we'll be talking about building the foundations for our starter site. That'll be a 1-hour live stream. And then on December the 16th, we'll be talking about some customizations with plugins and things like that. So the goal of these December live streams is to get you set up and working with a base site that you can duplicate for future projects and save yourself a lot of time and work. So that's what we're going to be doing on a couple of Tuesdays there in December, and I'm really grateful that hosting.com is allowing us to do that. So very, very exciting. So another, just a quick mention here. Tuesday, we're having a really fun AI live stream. I'm going to be talking about breaking the content bottleneck with AI and basically just unpacking some of the ways we've been using AI to speed up content generation for projects. And so it was always the long-standing joke. If you get into a group of web developers who are working with clients trying to build projects, and you ask how many folks right now today have a project hung up on content, like everybody's hand goes up, right? We're always waiting on content. And there's some clever things that you can do with AI to unstick the stuck projects and break the bottleneck that content creates. And so I'm going to bring some of those things to you on Tuesday, and I'm really looking forward to that. So all that is waiting on you there at the upcoming link. I'm going to drop in the link bundle again there in the chat. That very first link in the bundle I just dropped in, upcoming.myagencysuccess.com, takes you to this link where all of the upcoming live streams can be found, and you can click on those and learn more about them and sign up. All righty, so let us get into some questions, shall we? We have a bunch of questions stacked up in the list. Looks like still we're hanging tough at the 11 list here. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, once again, I'm going to drop that link in the chat. Let's get started today with the first question, and this one is from Beth Livingston. All right, let's see what Beth has here. Great question. What do I lose if I use the independent analytics plugin and not Google Analytics? All right, so for those of you who haven't seen independent analytics before, instead of me trying to type that, why don't I just copy it? This is a free WordPress plugin that also does have a paid version, but you can get this free right here in the plugin library at wordpress.org. The link is there in the chat, or you can go here to independentwp.com. And this is a really, really good WordPress-based analytics plugin. We've talked about it in and out here on office hours a few times. We're using it on at least, I think, 2 client sites, and it's just great. I have no downside about this. It is storing the stuff in the database, and so you'll see some larger database tables, but it's all, that's just for this plugin, so it's not slowing down the site really at all. You might maybe see some speed issue if you have like a super high performing site. I don't think you will, though. It's really well done. We've not noticed anything, and it's been on some medium traffic sites, but it's just got everything you need as far as analytics goes. It's quite good. The graphics are very nice. All of the top level information of, visitors, views, sessions, all of that, and then the breakdown of what like the right here, just your top blog posts, your top landing pages, etc. It's shows you where your traffic's coming from. It's just really good. So we like it, and I recommend it. There is this pro version. I don't know if they have any Black Friday deal going on, but they still do have a lifetime deal with unlimited sites and so forth. $5.97 is the current deal. Maybe they'll drop that down for Black Friday. The free version is $0. And now on this page, we'll get to the answer to the question that Beth asked, and it's what Sue just asked in the chat of what won't it do? So what am I losing if I move away from Google Analytics and go to independent analytics? So just notice the X's here. So these X's are between the free and the pro version, right? So here's the free version, and at all the pro versions, you get some different features. So what you don't get that you would get in Google Analytics in the free version, it doesn't have real-time analytics. So you can't see, oh, there's 2 people on my site right now. Now it's going to be like a daily view or, that sort of view. So if live, true live analytics is important, you either need to pay for the paid version of independent analytics, or you need to use Google Analytics GA4. The other things that the free version doesn't include here, like reporting, tracking of forms, e-commerce analytics, if you're running campaigns, like tracking UTM codes, things like that, it doesn't do that in the free version. It does do that in the pro version. And so that being said, really the only time I would say, like, if you want to move to independent analytics for all of your sites, really the thing that would make me caution you against that is if you're running Google Ads. You really need Google Analytics to be working in tandem with Google Ads, so you see all of the correct statistics, and you can link all those things. But other than that, it's a good piece of software. So it is going to be faster because Google Analytics has to load external scripts. And honestly, I think it's going to be more accurate. And here's the reason. The reason that they rebuilt Google Analytics to become GA4 is because of all of the privacy concerns that typical classic Google Analytics created. And so the traffic data you get in GA4 is not exact because they don't track individual users. They approximate, and it's usually pretty close. Like, it's close enough where it's not really enough to worry about, but it's not actual tracking. And independent analytics is going to be actual tracking. And because it's all on your site, you don't have to worry about third-party cookies. And so it really makes a lot of sense in a lot of cases. We still use Google Analytics on most sites. If for some, I wouldn't have a problem with moving to independent analytics for most of our sites. It's just not something we've had a business reason to do yet. So that was a long answer to a short question, but hopefully it kind of fills in the gaps. Beth, does that make sense? Beth is saying she'll stay free now and go pro if you ever want to do Google Ads. Well, if you're going to do Google Ads, you want to put Google Analytics back on the site, because that's going to help you connect. If you're using UTM codes, like tracking links on social media or email campaigns, then you do need the pro version of independent analytics to do that. Google Analytics does that free, of course. So yeah, there you go. It's a great piece of software. It is GDPR compatible as well because it's a first-party cookie. It stays on your site. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. Really good piece of software, I think. All right. Let us move on to the next question, and that comes from Class. Hey, Class, how are you? All right. Class has a Cloudflare question. So a membership site and the WAF rule login challenge. The Cloudflare WAF rule presents a challenge before loading the login page to protect the page from bad actors. Correct. If you have that set up, or if you're using rocket.net, it's going to challenge the WordPress login page automatically. If you're using WAF rules that you've gotten from me or Troy Glancy or others, protecting that login page is part of that Cloudflare rule set. Do you use that rule on a membership site as well? Meaning every time a member logs in, they're presented with the challenge screen before the login page loads. And the answer to that question is absolutely. It doesn't matter what kind of site it is. I want to protect any kind of login page with a CAPTCHA of some kind. And so if you are using rules I've provided in the past in various courses or Troy Glancy's rules, one of those rules has the wp-login.php rule as a managed challenge action. And you want to make sure really that any page that has a login on it, like if it's a WooCommerce page, the my-account page needs to have that be part of that challenge rule. Or if you have a /login or /sign-in or something that your membership plugin creates, wherever there is a login field, that page should be challenged. And here's why. The WordPress login field is one of the main ways that a DDoS attack is going to happen, that distributed denial of service attack or login cramming attack, with the result that, thousands and thousands and thousands of bot requests hitting your site every minute, stuffing that login field with different credentials, trying to log into the site, right? And every time the site has to process that login and check and see if it exists, that's just consuming resources on the server. And eventually that server is going to grind to a halt because the resources are going to be taken up. So does that make sense, class? There are some sites that have, like in the header, you'll see like a login. That's not a great idea because it's really hard to put a CAPTCHA up there, and you don't want to challenge every page of the site. You want to make sure you have a discrete login page, that's its job. It's a login page, and that page and any other pages with a username password field need to have a challenge in front of them. And it's best, you can surely even, you can do that with a WordPress plugin that drops in, a reCAPTCHA or an HCAPTCHA or a Cloudflare turnstile widget on that page. You can do that. However, it's better to do that at the network level with whatever, Cloudflare for DNS is my recommendation, because that way that traffic is going to get challenged before your server ever has to respond. So even if that the CAPTCHA widget, in whichever flavor you use, even though that would prevent the login from being submitted, that login page still has to be loaded if you're getting thousands of bot attacks, right? So it's better to filter those out at the network level, at the DNS level, with something like Cloudflare that's protecting that page. All right. Great question, class. Thank you. This is also why you should really look at your Cloudflare rules for every site. And so you can have kind of a basic set of rules, but certain sites, like maybe you've got a different login page on this site. So you got to make sure you add that in and tweak those for the needs of each site. All right, next up is another question from Beth Livingston. All right, Beth. Let's say I have 15 websites that I manage, but 5 of those are ones I'm playing with that might turn into real sites at some point. I want to sign up for the 10-site package at hosting.com. Is there any downside or gotchas to having an account on a reputable, cheap shared host for my sandbox and then moving them over to hosting.com when or if necessary? For example, let's say I use Namecheap, which is cPanel configuration, but then I want to move it to managed at hosting.com. Okay, great question. So yes, this is not a bad idea, okay? And it kind of goes back to something I was talking about Tuesday in the WooCommerce live stream about different types of hosting being good for different types of things, right? Like shared hosting gets a lot of, we talk badly about it, right? However, shared hosting has a purpose. And if if you've got grandma's cat blog, it doesn't need superpower hosting necessarily, depending on what it is and how much the person that runs the site wants to do as far as work goes. But it might not need super high-end hosting. There's a place in the world for shared hosting, which, by the way, is why hosting.com offers shared hosting. And you can find that somewhere. Hang on. Web hosting right here. So, inexpensive shared hosting, hosting.com does offer that. So you don't have to go to any other provider. You can stay right at hosting.com and get an inexpensive shared hosting plan if that's what you want for these play around sites, little hobby sites. And if shared is going to give you all you need, just as you're tinkering around with things, use hosting.com shared plan. It's just hosting.com/hosting. That's going to be a good fit for that. Now, can you then move over to, better hosting when you're ready? Absolutely. So Beth, does that answer your question? And if you're talking about the 10 site package using the managed WordPress hosting by rocket.net that hosting.com offers, it would, that would be expensive for a sandbox type site. So yeah, good. That gets the question. Good. Very good. All right. Next, now another option also could be, Beth. I mean, depending on how many sites you have, or if this inexpensive shared level hosting doesn't, if it's slow for whatever your use purposes is, you could also get an inexpensive VPS. VPS is, they start pretty inexpensively, and this would give you more power, and you can load a bunch of sites on there the same way. So it's still very affordable, even at a basic level. So think about that. There's some options. Could be that shared is all you need just for a sandbox type thing. Yeah. All right. Next up is Melanie. All right. Melanie says, still learning this Lightspeed caching system on hosting.com. I have to say, this virtual dedicated server is amazingly fast, even without caching. That's what I thought too when we moved our stuff over to a VDS. Incredible, like significantly faster. Even from, we had a dedicated server before, and moving to the VDS with the new hardware was just, it is so fast. Okay, many of my church clients have forms on their church management system, signups for events, donations, etc. They're embedded with JavaScript. Lightspeed doesn't work and play well with them. I've just excluded the pages or event as a quick fix. Yeah, so that is, as with any optimization plugin, any form pages or things like that, you really have to dial in and make sure, in some cases, the form pages are excluded, especially if, and I suspect this is the case, Melanie, especially if there's conditional logic on the forms. Are these forms you're having trouble with? Do they have like Gravity Forms conditional logic, that sort of thing? I'm going to guess that's probably what's going on, and that's where a lot of that JavaScript is happening. Let me see if I'm not sure I even have Lightspeed on WP Nathan. If I do, it might have some basic settings. Yes. Oh, Melanie's saying they're hosted forms from a third party. Then absolutely, any page where there's an embed that's coming in, with like a script that's calling something else, or even sometimes an iframe, that's definitely a page you want to exclude from any sort of optimization. Now, the good thing about it is, let's just say, we'll just go to okay. So let's just say this is the form page, right? It's really easy to exclude. You just hover over the Lightspeed icon. mark this page as no optimization. It's not so much the cache that's the issue here, although I'd probably just mark this non-cacheable too while you're at it, but just mark this no optimization, and that will make sure that none of those JavaScript optimizations are happening on that page with that embed. So that's the easiest way to deal with it. You can also mark it non-cacheable. I mean, if you're going to do it, go ahead and do both, but the cache is probably not the issue. Now, as far as safe settings go, really within Lightspeed, what you're looking at is this page optimization settings. And I'm just going to scroll down here. These are our default settings. We minify, but we don't combine. We don't use any of these things. Everything else is pretty much off, other than the swap the font optimization. On JavaScript, we minify and defer, but that's it. You don't want to combine any of this stuff. That can cause some real problems. So it's this, make sure in this JavaScript tab that you have the right settings. Now, all that to say, the Lightspeed plugin is not required to get the biggest speed bumps from the Lightspeed cache. The Lightspeed cache is running at the server level. What the Lightspeed plugin does is just do some extra WordPressy type things to speed up a little bit, but it's not even required. You don't have to use this plugin in order to get the biggest benefits of Lightspeed. Lightspeed is an Apache replacement. So it's the web server software is Lightspeed. So very, very, very powerful, significantly faster than Apache, faster even than Nginx. And Melanie, you're right. Clearing the caches is what this plugin is really good at. The other thing to look at here, as you're setting this up in the CDN area, you'll want to make sure this isn't connected, but you want to make sure that you connect it to Cloudflare. That way, anytime a plugin or theme, core, any updates that are run, or even when a page or a post is added, it clears all the caches all the way up the chain, even Cloudflare. So that's a really important thing to do. Mr. Anderson, do I use any of the presets in Lightspeed? I've developed my own presets, and I like our set. And I've shown you most of those things. Really, the problematic issues are in page optimization. I've not used the built-in presets simply because we know what we have works. The Lightspeed Cache plugin, like any other optimization plugin, fill in the blank of your favorite one here, from WP Rocket to all the way up. All of them can speed up your site a lot. They can also break your site a lot, right? So you have to be really careful and find that that happy medium between the speed optimization that you want and, oh my gosh, my CSS is broken, right? It's just, there's no easy way to do. There's not a plugin out there that's got a single, miracle button that just speeds everything up without you having to play around with it a little bit. Yeah. Wish there was. You could be the next WordPress millionaire if you figure that out. But just understanding how things work behind the scenes, I'm not sure how that would be possible. The closest thing to that, honestly, is the managed WordPress hosting by Rocket.net, because it's going to pull everything out into the Cloudflare edge with Cloudflare Enterprise and optimize all the things out there at the edge, including images. That's about the closest thing you can get to a silver bullet type solution. All righty. Good question. Anything else on that? All right, we have another question from Beth. Beth has used the form this week. All right, Beth Livingston. What are some examples of pages you typically set to no index? Interesting. Thank you pages, log in, anything behind a paywall. Very good. Okay. So by setting to no index, what you mean is going into your SEO plugin of choice, right? And going to the settings for that page In this case, I believe we have Yoast on this site. Ooh. Let's see. Yeah. So going into Yoast or whatever your SEO plugin is and saying, do not allow search engines to index this content. In other words, no index this page. That's what we're talking about, right? Okay. So I don't, as long as there is a login or there's content protection, I wouldn't worry about things behind a paywall. That's going to take you 8 years to no index all those things. Just leave it. Google's not going to do much with them because it's going to redirect them to a login page, right? So I wouldn't worry about no indexing membership paid behind a paywall type content because the paywall's there. The things you want to no index are pages like, well, you've mentioned some thank you pages. So in other words, a page, and thank you pages are really only important if you're tracking conversions with some sort of analytics, right? So traffic that lands on the thank you page after I submit a form is only going to get to that page by submitting the form. That way I know visiting that page is a conversion. So that definitely you want to no index that page because you don't want it people stumbling on it somehow with your just from Googling things, right? So other than that, what would I typically no index? On a typical site, I'm not sure anything else that I would no index. I'm open to suggestions. Stacy is saying private pages. I mean, you can, but that like the point of no indexing is a page that has content that I don't want to index. If it's a private page, they're not going to be able to see it anyway. Like if we're using the technical term private page in WordPress, because that page you actually have to be logged in even to access it. Doug, that was just thinking about that, like legal pages, like terms of service and privacy policies. I probably want those indexed in most cases. Probably want those indexed if people are Googling the privacy policy of a certain site or whatever. Terry says that's assuming Google respects the no index. Yeah, Google's pretty good about that. It's some of the other search engines that might not be. Yeah, I don't know that there's any, there might always be certain odd pages on certain sites that you want to know index, but as far as the typical site, I don't know anything else I would know index. Yeah, I really can't think of anything. And, for a lot of membership sites, especially, you know, you might have content protection on a certain page, but like some of it is free and open for anybody, and then you have to log in to see the rest. You definitely don't want to no index that page. I can't think of any other page besides a thank you page at this moment that I would want to no index on a typical site. Melanie's saying she has a client site that does raffles for trips. We no index the whole custom post type. They don't want them visible to the world, but to clients only. Yeah, you could certainly do that. Setting them as no index. So let's just say it, and it was alluded to a minute ago by Terry, setting a page as no index, all that does is add a meta tag in the head that says no index, right? It doesn't stop search engines from scanning the page. It doesn't stop them from indexing a page. It is simply a request that search engines generally honor, unless it's a sketchy search engine. The big ones honor that. So yeah, okay. Thank you. There's a good example. Thank you, Doug, for that. If you are, and this is the same kind of thing as the thank you page, anything you're tracking conversions on, the thank you page at the end of a form, and I want to see how that tracks in a funnel that I've set up in Google Analytics. Another example like that is what Doug just suggested in the chat, which is a Google Ads landing page. And it's really any page that I'm tracking, that I don't want the world landing on for tracking purposes is really one of the big keys here. So that's a great example. Thank you for that, Doug. Definitely want to no index those types of pages or any other page that you're tracking for any type of purpose that shouldn't be indexed because it's part of a flow. Does that make sense? Tanya, that's a great point. Okay, so Tanya says it's good to remove them from your sitemap. Now, if you, like with Yoast, let's just go, okay, we've turned this to no, let's save it. Now let's look at the sitemap. In most, I would imagine, most WordPress SEO plugins are going to do this. If the page is set to no index, notice here in the page sitemap, about is not listed. So it pulls it out of the sitemap if you no index it. Now, if you have a human index, like at the bottom where it says sitemap, then it's a page, an actual page with all of your pages and posts and that sort of thing listed, a human sitemap, then you've got to make sure it's not listed there too, because it'll get followed in. But even in that case, it's going to, if a search engine follows that link, it's still going to show no index in the head, and hopefully it won't index the page. Phoebe. Phoebe says she set a page to no index once, but the WordPress search function still found it. Yes, because that's not what no index means. WordPress search is different than Google search. So the no index tag is an instruction for search engines. It has nothing at all to do with WordPress search. So you'd need either a plugin that removes a page from the search results or some code. It's a really simple snippet. Your favorite AI tool, you can just say, I want to, the page with slug blank or page ID blank or whatever. I want to exclude that from search results. It's like a 10-line function. It's really simple, but no index. I'm glad you brought that up, Phoebe, because it's a common misconception. No index on an SEO plugin has nothing to do with the WordPress search. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. All right, anybody else on this one? This is a fun little path through the woods here. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to another question from class. And by the way, if you have a question to ask, please use the link in the chat. All right, class. Many words. Let's see what we have here. Limiting a membership site login by geographic area. Oh, that's interesting. The membership site currently uses Paid Membership Pro, the free version. The client, which is actually a pretty darn good plugin at the free version. The client sells memberships to chapters of a national organization and wants to control or prevent sharing links with other chapters who haven't paid for a membership. Oh boy. Okay, so for example, Fred Flintstone is a member of the Loyal Order of Water Buffaloes, Bedrock chapter. In fact, he is. His chapter purchases a membership from my client, but we don't want folks in the Granite Town chapter to be able to use the Bedrock chapter's link. Which brings us to limiting login access by geolocation. Okay, so first, class, what is this membership for? Is this like their own little subsite or what? Yeah, I need to understand what this link is all about. Oh, access to the content. Okay. So your issue here is not geolocation, it's content restriction. So let's say the Bedrock chapter buys access and then they're given a special link, and then anybody with that link can access the content with that open link that just lets everybody in. Is that right? Okay, yeah. So this is not a geolocation issue. This is a content restriction issue. Like, we need to figure out a better way to grant the correct people access to the content. Really, there needs to be a password, a username and a password, so that you actually have to log in order to access the content. Multiple chapters can buy the package, but you don't want them to share the link. Good luck with that. Like that's that's not going to work. Oh, so they have to log in. Okay, so you're saying they do have a login, but you don't want people in one chapter to share that login information with another. Is that right? Okay, so it's not a link, it's actual username and password. I, I don't know how. Yeah, geolocation is not your issue. That's not the avenue to think about this in. Is there and the problem is there could be multiple people in that chapter that use that login, right? Geolocation is incredibly unreliable. And I don't know how you would even begin to, like, you would have to have something that said this user can only log in from this geographical area. And then what if they're traveling or something? I don't know of any site that does that because it's going to be hard to create and really unreliable in the end result. So yeah, your issue is more, you really can't prevent credential sharing in this scenario unless you have individual user accounts, which I know you don't want to do. And see, even multi-factor, doing some sort of two-factor or multi-factor authentication is not going to help here because you have multiple people, like everybody in the chapter, if I'm understanding this right, everybody in the chapter should be able to access this. So they're sharing this username and password with everybody in the chapter. Is that right, class? So multi-factor is going to prevent one person. Like you could have one person in the chapter using that. Yeah. So there's, yeah. So as soon as you say the word sharing, class, it's open to the world. Like anybody can share it with anybody because it's shared. So there are plugins that can restrict they can restrict to like one active login per username, but you don't even want that. This is the time for have a conversation with the client because their desires are conflicting. We want people within a chapter to be able to share a single login. However, we don't want other people outside that chapter to be able to use that login. And now it's literally down to the honesty of people, and we know how that goes. So you have a conflicting set of requirements. And so now you have to have the conversation with the client to say, you can choose one of these. You can either choose to have a single login that everyone in the organization shares, or you can make every person in the chapter have their own separate login. There's some ways to do that we can talk about in a minute. So if the client wants to allow everybody in the chapter to share the same login, there's not a way that I'm aware of to prevent other people outside that chapter from logging in. There's just not, because it's a shared login. We're doing a project right now where it's sort of applicable here because what the client wants is if an organization is a partner with our client, then they want their constituency to be able to create a login, but nobody else should be able to. So what we ended up creating or using was a gravity form with a user creation flow. But at the beginning of that gravity form is a password that we give to the chapter people. And so anybody that they give that password to, they can go into the site, they can type in that password, and it's just gravity forms conditional logic. It opens up the rest of the now you can create an account area. So that's one way to do it, but in that way, everybody in the organization can have their own individual login. But even at that point, you can't stop people from sharing their individual login with somebody else in another chapter. So even by building that, it's on the internet. People are going to be able to get to it, and it doesn't matter. All these things, it doesn't matter. It's on the internet, and if people share their login, they can share their login. It's just part of the deal. So at this point, it's really a conversation with the client an educational, consultative conversation where you help them understand the implications of the requirements that they have. So we didn't give you an answer at all. So I hate that Fred Flintstone is going to struggle here, but looks like he is. Class, any bit of this that we didn't touch on or any other advice for class, there's some great conversation happening in the chat. All right, next up is Beth Livingston. Do you set meta titles and descriptions for taxonomy entries? What are we talking about here, Beth? Are we talking about SEO like this for each taxonomy entry? Okay. Yeah. So various SEO plugins are going to have their SEO meta box on the terms in different taxonomies. In this case, it's post category. So generally, we don't worry about it. However, just because the way we use taxonomies often doesn't, it's not going to be helpful to optimize the SEO for that. So this is going to show up on the archive page for that term, which we rarely use, which is why I say we don't generally do it. However, if you have, for example, a product category page for WooCommerce, or if you have a legit archive page where the terms in that taxonomy are viewable and so forth, that this, setting the meta description and so forth, that will be helpful. So it really depends on how you're using the terms and how your site is structured. Does that make sense? If you have legit archive pages for that are showing the terms in this category, then yes. We usually don't build sites that way. Yeah, good. All right. Next up, Jamie. Hey, Jamie. Oh, many words. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to make this narrower. I'm posting on behalf of my colleague, Karen. She is having trouble with PageSpeed on mobile for her homepage. This is what she wrote. We were at 89 consistently for performance, and it was the LCP that was holding it back from being 90 on mobile. It was 100 on desktop. One of the recommendations was this: defer less important resources. I'm using Lightspeed, so I had to turn on load CSS asynchronously at your peril. And I had to do that. I had it set up on Quick Cloud CDN. I had to wait 20 minutes to get a new SSL, and then it finally started giving us numbers again, and it feels like a random number generator. Yeah. Desktop dropped, all these things. Mobile back up to 89, but frankly, this was at 89. Yep. Okay. So has this done nothing other than cause a bunch of work and stress? I'll come back to that. I started on PageSpeed Insights because I ran it through GTmetrix. I tried to solve a few things, looked up what the Contentful Paint stuff was, and that pointed to me to PSI. So I figured since it was Google's, it would be more accurate. I've got the accessibility to 100, and I improved performance to 89 by removing all these things. I really wanted to be at least 90, so it was green instead of orange. So I started going down the CDN route and just crossed over into craziness. Yes, I've heard that a CDN can sometimes do more harm than good. I guess she's looking for suggestions on how to get the page speed green on mobile. Okay. Oh, this is Karen, who's usually here. Awesome. Okay, great. All right. I'm going to clear my throat here because I'm about to step up on a soapbox. Two things about this, two soapboxes, 1 foot firmly upon each. Okay, ready? Page speed scores are not like taking your temperature with a thermometer, okay? As you have just noticed through this crazy making cycle that you've been through, the scores are going to vary wildly. Like you can run it back to back and the scores will be different, which is freaking annoying. It just is. It's ridiculous. A lot of factors can influence that. Some of it is what's going on Google server. Some of it's what's going on your server. No two page loads are ever going to be the same. It's like every time that page loads, it's going to have a different page score. I've had some differ by 10 points, which that's 1 foot firmly planted on the first soapbox, which is speed measurement tools suck. They just suck. They're unreliable. It's just really hard to get consistent results. Now, do 10 of them, and you'll probably be able to see some things that are common that you might want to improve. But just trying to get 90 on your score, like you could stay up all night doing that, and the end result is it probably won't matter. Okay, this is the thing. Speed scores are important. I talked about them Tuesday, like with e-commerce, right? But the issue here is not, when you're the speed scores that I was talking about on Tuesday are actual literal scores with a user on a device. The problem, I hate this so much. The problem with these Google tests, whoops, let me get to a guest profile. The problem with these Google tests is that they don't use the typical user's device. Okay. If you are, I'm just going to say, and I realize I'm being, well, whatever. The typical user's device for the clients of most of the people who are going to be watching this live stream are not using a 10-year-old smartphone and a 10-year-old speed internet connection. They're using newer phones. They're using pretty fast mobile internet speed, right? The problem here with this mobile score, let's see, where is the throttling? Let me find it. I'm not seeing it. Why am I not seeing it? You'll see this in, here it is, right here. So emulating a Moto G Power. Okay, Moto G Power is the device it's emulating. So like the mobile phone with a particular CPU. This is a device that was released 3 years ago. And it's probably even older than that, or they've just updated this. They used to be using like a 7 to 10-year-old mobile device. They've also throttled it back with slow 4G throttling. So it's a very slow internet connection, which means these mobile speeds, I mean, go to WP Nathan on your phone right now and see if it takes 4 seconds to load, because it doesn't. It's just like that. So the speed scores, particularly when it comes to like those e-commerce statistics that I talked about Tuesday, it's the actual user scores, not these tests that are run in a laboratory with perfect conditions, right? So, am I making sense when I'm talking about this? Does this make sense to everybody? It's so freaking annoying. And you have all these articles about how important page speed is, and they're written by people that want to sell you things. Right? So here's the thing. Page speed, is it important? Sure. Like if your site, like actually, as you're watching it or you're using it on your phone, if your site actually takes 5 seconds, 10 seconds to load, you've got a problem. You've got a real problem. If your site takes 2 seconds to load, like I'm the nerdiest tech person ever. I'm fine with if your site takes 2 or 3 seconds to load. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, good grief. Some of the largest news sites on the internet take forever to load, and you're still going there because you want to see the content. So anyway, all this to say, speed is important. It is part of Google's algorithm. It is one part of one part of one part of their algorithm. Speed is one part of user experience, which is one part of one of the E's in EAT, which is one part of the broader thing. Like people selling speed plugins for WordPress have convinced everybody that if you want to be #1 on Google, you have to have 100 page speed score. And it's just not the case. Like Google something that's your client's, in your client's field, whatever, electromechanical batteries. I don't know, make up something. Look at the top result and test the page speed of that site. I bet you anything it's going to be awful. It's going to be bad. And it doesn't matter. It's still ranked #1, right? So anyway, My blood pressure is up. I warned you it was a soapbox. 2 soapboxes, in fact. So do your best to optimize for speed. Don't spend 8 years trying to go from an 89 to a 90. It doesn't matter. Now, here's the time that it will matter, okay? The time that it will matter, like the 89 to 90 or that extra half a second or whatever, the times when that matters is when all other factors are the same or close. Like if you're in a competitive industry and there's lots of other clients that have just as good content on their website, page speed can be the thing that tips one over to rank higher than the other. Okay. That's when it really, supremely matters. Focus on content. SEO is about content. Have good content that speaks to your target audience and is exactly what they're looking for. Okay. That's what matters in SEO, not going from orange to green. Is it bad to go to orange to green? Of course not. Is it going to, bring in $1 million of sales? Of course not, unless the thing you sell is $1 million, right? Anyway, did we lose anybody? Okay, no, actually attendees went up during that rant. So I'll stop now. And Jamie, did we answer your question well enough there? All right, let's move on to the next question, which is from Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you're up next. Oh, dear. Yeah, we've covered speed now for the next 6 months, I think. So annoying. All right. Both technical and business related. This is Jeffrey. Jeffrey, are you here? Yeah. Hey, Jeffrey. Jeffrey has a client, the type that I like to work with, great, that has reached out to me to create a membership portal for up to 60 users. Cool. They want discussion boards with different user access, a membership directory, and scheduling abilities. It has to be private and secure with things like prayer requests. Great. I did recommend looking at a SaaS-like discourse.org to manage part of these things, but then everything else in WordPress. But they're very adamant about only having one login for everything. And these are also older adults. Okay. I don't really want to take on learning a whole new thing, so I've already explained they would need to manage the portal aspects, and I would just manage WordPress, and they are okay with that. I do need to advise them on what type they are okay with that today. I do need to advise them on what type of hosting they would need, as I'm unfamiliar with the demands. Do you recommend I help them install something like MemberPress, User Manager, BuddyPress, BBPress, or just keep this out of their WordPress site? Or encourage them to work with someone that has more experience? Okay, great question. All right. So let's look at the requirements here. Before we do that, though, I just want to mention they would need to manage the portal, and I would need to manage WordPress. Jeffrey, you're going to end up managing the portal if you build this. You're going to end up managing the portal in some fashion. You're just going to, because you're their guy, right? You're their tech guy, and there's going to be things that come up and you're going to have to deal with it. Now, the day-to-day management, maybe you can train them how to do it, but whatever it is, you're going to have to train them how to do this. So when you say a membership portal, are they paying for access? Or is this they're just granting access to certain people in their organization? Okay, it's a community. So here's a very important thing. You don't want to do a membership plugin in that case. You need access control, but you don't need a membership plugin. A membership plugin is access control plus billing of some sort or subscriptions and that sort of thing. And it's infinitely more complicated to manage that sort of stuff than it is just simply to have access controls, which you can do with WordPress user login. What I would encourage you to look at is Fluent Community. Fluent Community is super, super cool. We've built a couple. We really, really like it. It's like your own private Facebook. It is not terribly expensive. I think they still have a lifetime deal going. Yeah, they do right here. So lifetime deal for one site's $400. And let's see if we get a demo. There used to be a demo here someplace. See, it looks just like Facebook. It has members and spaces like Facebook groups, discussions. It has instant messaging. You can turn all on and off all of this stuff. Now, as Melanie is mentioning, this should absolutely be on a subdomain and not part of their regular site, or it should be on its own domain that's not part of their regular site, because this community is going to kind of take over the whole WordPress install. This Fluent Community is a WordPress plugin. It's by the Fluent people, like Fluent Forms and Fluent, all the things. We actually, for the one that I work with, we installed Fluent CRM on the back end, and that's how the organization does user management. You can actually tie tags in the CRM to access to groups in Fluent Community, and it works so well. It's so cool. Anyway, this is really good. And one little thing we did also, I didn't want people filling up the server full of little images and stupid GIFs. And so with some CSS, we just hid the image, like add the image icon, like on the message. And now they can't upload images unless they know how to get around that. But anyway, it's really good, really well written code. And supposedly, and I certainly hope sometime very soon, they are building an app for this. So you could make it into its own discrete app. So yeah, we like this a lot. This is probably the direction I would push you rather than Buddy Boss. Buddy Boss is a very complicated piece of software. Buddy Boss, however, does have an app and it works. So anyway, we really like this one, and it's inexpensive. So does that help, Jeffrey? It's quite good. It also has a basic LMS built into it if they want to have courses or that sort of thing. Yeah, try that. And then you can just create the users for people or show them how to create users on the back end of WordPress. Do users have the same login? Yeah. Yeah. So you just go to the site and it's going to have there's I was going to say switch. There's a setting in Fluent Community where you can make that private or not. And by making it private, it requires a login. Yeah. All right. Just a note for any software like this, Buddy Boss, Buddy Press, all those things included. As you can imagine, every single message that goes through is a database entry. And so this database can get very, very large. And 60 users isn't going to be too bad as far as how much work the server has to do. But just be aware, this may need more than typical hosting requirements. So it might need, for example, its own standalone VPS, or this might work really well on rocket.net, actually. This might be a great use case for that, because you only have 60 users. If you had 600 users, I'd say, ooh, that might start to eat into sessions with rocket.net. All right. Oh my goodness, it's already 2:00 Central. And we still have 5 questions. I'm going to go, okay, lightning round. Everybody ready? Terry is next. Lightning round. Quick questions, quick answers as best I can. All right, here's Terry's question. Has anyone ever experienced being unable to access their own website because their carrier's IP address was flagged? Wow. Earlier today, I lost access to my VPS servers in the US for this reason. My IP address was listed here. Wow. Terry, this IP address, is that your server or is that from your ISP? From your network carrier? Okay, so from your ISP. Use a VPN is the only way to get around that. That's a problem. Have you tried a VPN? That's no good. So with a VPN, you should be able to get around it. Because you're not coming in as the IP address that your carrier provides. That's terrible. That carrier needs to get that fixed ASAP. That's crazy. Sorry you're going through that. Next up is Dave. Dave is asking, have you done a webinar about the use of AI to do simple tasks like you mentioned earlier in this webinar, something beginner related? What AI, free version, example prompts? Yes. Well, sort of. So if you go to replays.myagencysuccess.com, or I'll just drop this link in the chat, one of our first live streams was on AI. Katie, if you're here, can you know the AI live stream I'm looking for? I'm not quite sure where that is. It may not have gotten posted. However, I will give you, Dave, the handout right here. It's called Mastering Prompt Architecture. Whoop, did you find it, Jamie? Let's see if that's it. Thank you. That's it. And here, whoop, here is ignore that YouTube link. Here, the Google Drive link is the handbook for that live stream. That's a good place to start. Just talks about prompt architecture and how to use AI tools. All right, next up is Beth Livingston. A follow-up to a question I asked last week. And let's say you submitted a sitemap and it did a soft launch of a website a couple of months ago. Now you've added the rest of the content, a ton of pages and posts. Might it be beneficial to resubmit the sitemap before the hard launch where we start promoting the site? Can't hurt. I don't know that it would help. It can't hurt. Google knows it's there, and it's going to scan it when it scans it. Yeah. There's mixed opinions on this. Some people say if you keep resubmitting that Google will get angry at you. I don't know. For one time, I don't think it could hurt. I would try it. Okay, next up, Melanie. Melanie, I think this is going to be bigger than our ability to answer right now. On Immunify 360, I would ask hosting.com support and go with their recommendations is my quick answer to that question. We haven't changed the default settings on Immunify 360 from what hosting.com offers. All right, final question. This is from Mr. Anderson. I've been holding off on enabling Woo HPOS. Have you implemented it on any sites? Any issues? Did you notice any speed or backend performance improvements? Okay, so yes, we have HPOS running on all but 1 or 2 sites. We're not running it on any of the ones that we can enable it on. We've enabled it. It works great. No issues. There are 2 sites that we use that their WooCommerce connects to QuickBooks using a third-party integration so that orders are automatically dropped into QuickBooks. And those people, for whatever reason, don't support HPOS. They're too lazy to update their code. I don't know why. So we don't have it running on those. But yes, it does feel quicker, especially on the back end, especially accessing orders and reports. HPOS does feel a lot quicker. Yeah. If you do that, Ben, make sure you read up on the process. Make sure you back up, and ease your way into it. There's a compatibility mode it should go into and sit. Oh, and actually, Mr. Anderson, don't do that before the holidays. Do that after the holidays. Like, this is not something I would do right now. It's not going to provide enough benefit to you to be worth the risk for your personal e-commerce stores. Don't do that now. This is one of those things like I was talking about on Tuesday. Code freeze, don't do this. It's like, don't take the risk of some weird thing happening and your database getting hosed right before the holidays. All right. All right, everybody. I believe that wraps us up. End of questions. Yes. Well, this was fun. Many questions today. Super fun discussions, a couple of soapboxes, and we all survived. So with that, hope you have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week. I hope you enjoy some great time away this weekend with family and friends. We'll be back on Tuesday with that AI live stream all about breaking the content bottleneck with AI. I'm going to drop that link in here once again if you need that. All those links are there waiting on you. Upcoming.myagencysuccess.com is the place to find all those new and upcoming live streams. With that, I'll wrap it up. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll see you back next week here on Hosting.com's Agency Success, where we go further together.